we've already kind of done our squat episode. Even this episode, Cal, you kind of said that most of your exercises, if not all of them, are staggered in some way. Dan, you talked about staggered feet on your hover deadlift. So people go back and listen to that squat episode. But with that in mind, are you mixing in, Dan specifically, a lot of single leg jumps? And I kind of want to know this as well, altitude drops.
Yeah,
I
well,
see you talk
altitude
about
drop,
altitude always on 2 feet in presentations, but in your weight rooms with your teams, are you doing those single legs?
we do.
Okay.
But it's when I'm training high school kids, it's tough to drop them off one leg, right?
Mhm.
So I'm real careful with that. What I like to do is what I call Russian backwards jumps. So you get like us in a shot put position where you're bent over and you're jumping backwards on one leg. And then there's an element of balance. There's an element of getting to your glute and pushing. So that is their, again, I talk about balance all the time. That is their balance with coordination and being able to understand your hips when there's a free leg. It's so important in training. So yes, we do a lot of that. And
Okay.
sometimes we do it in between our bilateral movements, even if our feet are split. Because you do have to be on one, man. You do.
Okay. Chris, thoughts for you there as far as like, hey, either single leg jumps or single leg altitude drops? And then I'd love to know, always tinkering with your 1080 quantum, do you have any new kind of favorite unilateral or single leg exercises on that?
Well, I'm going to one up Dan on you've got one leg on the ground half the time. You're in the air more than half the time. And so my thing is where you're projecting to go through the air. Are you projecting up at 50 degrees? Are you projecting up at 45 degrees? Or are you projecting less than 45 degrees? So where are you flying to? And I think that brings a whole different, because I'm trying to figure out, hey, I've got these 50 kids. Some of these kids are super fast, but some of them look great when they run, but they're not fast. I'm trying to figure that out. And then you watch, you see some people that are projecting more horizontally than they are vertically. And so what are we doing to set up that horizontal push rather than a vertical push? And sometimes you get so vertical, you're actually cycling in the air, you hit down funny, and you just start to bounce. And you can watch people run along the side of a fence and watch their body bounce up and down. So yes, it's important to know what your foot is doing on the ground, but where is that foot taking you to? Where is it guiding you to when you're going to take off and fly?
I think that's why one of the reasons why you should put targets in the weight room also. Because when you have a target, even a projection target of where you're running, like in the Yuri, Cal, I'd place a target where we're putting our foot, where it's going to end up, where our knee is driving to on the wall. Little dot. So the brain now has a target. The brain loves targets. So yeah, I agree with that, Chris. 100%.
And I think we've gotten so into vertical force. And remember, that's what they could measure at the time. They could measure vertical force, and that's what we went with. That we've forgotten that you have to push forward in this. It's not as simple as how hard you slam your foot into the ground and you bounce yourself up in the air. There's got to be a taking of that force and sending you in a vertical aspect. I had this one girl here. If you looked at her, you'd say, there's no way she is what she is. And that's a multiple-time state champion, holds the records in both the hurdles races in the state of Illinois. And you watch her run, you go, oh, we've definitely got to change that. Well, she looks horrible. But then you figure out what she's actually doing is when she runs, she can drop her knee down and push forward, and she gets all horizontal force every step that she takes, which is why she's skinny. She doesn't look strong at all, but she's super fast. You know, you can even look at NFL running backs. Something popped up, and it was O.J. Simpson. And I'm trying to watch O.J. Simpson run away from the Pittsburgh Steelers on some 88-yard run. And you look to see where he's pushing and why he's covering so much ground while not looking great when he's sprinting. It's like, well, he's pushing completely forward when he's in the air. He's flying forward. He's not flying up. You know, trying to figure out what my son does for a living because he won't tell me anything because it's illegal. In studying drones and how things fly and all that stuff, it made me look at how we run differently and where we're pointing to that. Actually, just 1 degree difference in the flight of a drone can either push you up or forward. And in that world, it's either you have lift or thrust. And you've got to find a balance between the two. And that's really what we do when we run. What's the balance between your lift and your thrust? And I think people who do great drills and look great drilling and look perfect when they run and they show me their time, it's like, well, that's not so great. It's they have too much thrust of lift. And so you've got to balance it out where you get more thrust.
I think that's just such a great point too of people will send me research. Oh, the squat, the deadlift, the hang clean are the highest correlation to sprint speed. I'm like, okay, well, what other methods did they have?
Yeah.
If that's all they had, well, yeah, there's going to be one of those that is the highest correlation. So yeah, sometimes research is flawed that way where they're just not using the
And
best
who are
methods.
they using?
Yes,
Who
that's
are
the
the
other
people?
thing too.
Who are the people they're bringing in?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone always skips that part on the research. They go right to the conclusion and jump to their conclusions based on that conclusion and try to stick it in your face. Well, let's look where they ran. Well, they went to a senior citizens home and got 9 85-year-old men to try to run so they could get better food.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. As
it
opposed
doesn't
to
have any carryover.
research.
I don't know if I can say this. Well, this will be out after this happens, but Ken Clark has a paper coming out. Today's July 9th. It should be out Monday or Tuesday from USATF, and they have data on the top 10 sprinters, men and women in the United States, off 1080 numbers and everything, to explain to you what happens in those first 10 meters. Of the mean for men was 992.
Oh.
So everyone
Right.
there is 10 flat or faster. So what does a 10 flat guy actually look like? What are their numbers? Nobody's done that research before. The closest we had was the Rabitha paper from 2000, and he had a new paper come out, by the way, where it was down to, I think the fastest guy in that paper was 10.1 to a 10.8. So
Wow.
excited for Ken's paper to come out here in the next couple of days.
All right, we'll have to be looking for that. So now with Cal, we're talking about single leg. We're just going to word it that way. I think this is a great place for. Chris was talking about a horizontal versus a vertical force. You were training your son during COVID, and you found a pattern that made him be more vertical than horizontal. Then you started to create your performance or potentiation circuits. Can you just go slightly into that in case anybody hasn't heard about that?
Yeah, well, it's the classic, as I wrote my first book, the French contrast model, right? Where you're doing a quad dominant exercise and it's all vertical. And you do 4 exercises in a row. And then I filmed Brody running, and he was undulating too much when he ran compared to what he did right. He warmed up a little bit, and when I took a picture and I was
Word of
watching.
the day, undulate.
What?
Word of the day, undulate.
Yeah. And then I can't say it with my tooth out, but properly, when I smile. But the point is then, and then I so he did 3 sets of the old French contrast, which he's trained many Olympians for me and was very effective. But then I'm like, I'm causing a bad pattern. So then actually I did the posterior chain French contrast, which Chris gave me an idea to do years ago.
Mhm.
And it was, like reverse hyper, prime times, glute ham hyper, blah, blah, blah. And then I filmed him running after 3 sets of that, and he fixed it. So then the long story short on the performance pattern cycling is when I just blended because I thought, originally I thought it's the squats, the hurdle hops causing the problems. No, it was a combination of all of them. So then when you blend like a squat, then you do a posterior chain exercise. It can be anything from a reverse hyper to a prime time, and then go back to the hurdle hop and then back to the posterior chain. Then I didn't get the undulation when he ran. So realistically, the bodybuilding methods of 3 sets, 10 sets on powerlifting or Olympic lifting, where we got our training systems from as to train athletes, didn't take into consideration we're actually driving home bad patterns by repetitively doing the same exercise and not offsetting it with the antagonist. So
Okay. And
Yeah.
then in these performance pattern cycles that you're doing, potentiation clusters, people could look these up on your websites.
Yeah.
Do you have a place for bilateral exercises? And if you do, what are you doing after that? Just
Well,
always keeping in mind we
yeah.
run on one leg.
If it's a bilateral squat, then I would always, and it's a more quad dominant, whatever based exercise, I would then follow with a posterior exercise, which could be the Yuri, which could be the prime times, which could be RDL, which could be reverse hyper. And depending on your cycle, what matches up best or what you think that athlete's needs are is always, based upon your programming. But yeah, I found as long as I can do anything in the posterior chain after that, then it's going to be pretty profound. And look, I didn't want this to work because then I had to rewrite all my programs, right? And when I tested, it was so profound. And then I didn't want it to work in the upper body. I didn't think, if I do a bench, I don't need to do a back following that. Well, when I tested everything, I was like, damn it. It does work in the upper body. So now I had to rewrite all those upper body programs. It was frustrating, but it had to be done. Right. And when I say that, I balance test on a force plate. So I did bench and then back, and then you just get the feedback of going agonist-antagonist, and the brain likes it. It's a positive feedback versus driving home, let's say doing 10 sets of bench and then check somebody's balance with their eyes closed and their vestibular or their ears with the blocking the sound in the room, which I got from Dan on checking balance. Their balance was better when you just rotated the exercise in. It's pretty profound, and I've had other coaches that do serious testing in labs check it for me, and they were like, "Yep."
Amazing.
And this is for athletes. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. You should do this as a power lifter. It's only if you run and you play sports, right? That's what you should do, or if you're a human. So
there we go.
And Dan's going to question whether I am or not, but right.
Absolutely.
He thinks I'm from another dimension.
It's a great moral to the story here tonight of how everything is connected. Everything is connected. Everything will have an impact on everything else. More inspiration from you, Dan. You're really the hot topic for tonight. I've heard you mention different speeds, right? So profound for me of, hey, you're not just trying to go full blast sprint every single set that you have there. You've talked about training at different speeds. So please explain that a little bit. Chris, Cal, I'll modify this one for you. But then what I want to know next, Dan, is have you gotten into training different distances and different heights for jumps, working on proprioception and working on that kinesthetic awareness? So like for a broad jump, would you ever put a cone out at 70%, jump to that? And will that have an impact on their full blast 100% broad jump later on down the road?
So the first thing with going at different speeds is when you're training your brain to understand speed. Like we used to do these runs with DB Hammer, and Chris will vouch for this, years ago, where he'd say, you guys want guys to break 11 seconds in the 100-meter dash in high school. Yeah. If we got 5 of those guys, we'd be fantastic. So we would run for 11 seconds and coaches would throw down a cone on the track, right? So now you can visually see speed. So I can see 11 flat. There's the finish line. If I want to run 10-9, that's the difference, right? Now I see it in my brain. The other thing that I started playing around with was hearing speed. What does speed sound like? Right? And it sounds like when we use those shot timers, I can create crazy speed and you got to match the audible, right? You got to match that tone. So now we hear it and we correlate what it actually hear, what it feels like to hear it. And then overspeed training is feeling speed. This is what it feels like to run that fast. So all these things are brain friendly when you train different speeds. When you go back to Jay Schroeder's extreme slow stuff, you're moving so slow that you have to fire your fast twitch. You have to constantly stay engaged. The intent to pull the bar into position. Those things have so much merit because they're different speeds to the brain. And the more you can understand the different speeds, the more you're able to break your speed barrier.
All right. And then, Dan, you've demonstrated before at different presentations. You put on your shot timer.
Yeah.
You do a toe touch. Have you messed around with that with like a vertical jump? Hey, I want you to jump this fast. Get down and off the ground this fast.
Because now it's a coordination thing. It's a timing thing. And it's an inhibitory thing, meaning I have to not go as hard as I can. I have to time it to something else. So now my frontal lobe is involved. Right. So that's all I try to do in training is make your frontal lobe get involved in it. You have to make decisions. Now in track and field, it's a little different when the 100-meter dash goes off, but you are now working on reactive things. Are you reacting with less hearing? Are you reacting with your eyes closed? Are you reacting with your head turned slightly? Are you reacting, you know what I mean? Changing that stimulus to how it gets into your ears, to how it gets down your spinal cord and into your hands and feet. I think all those things can be trained. All of them. Yeah.
Okay. Now, for Cal and Chris, I'm going to kind of modify this question for you guys because you have 1080s that you're using.
No, because I'm the only one who wears a helmet in this group. That's why you modify it. All my questions are modified.
Yeah, but you look good in the helmet.
Thanks.
We're going to say you're the people's champion, right?
Flakes
You're
and
here
beans.
for the people.
Yeah. I don't know what people.
So
just give them some chocolate and leave them alone.
I can't stand people. That's my problem.
So Dan was talking about different speeds. You guys have the ability to slow an athlete down with a time or velocity decrement with your 1080s, and hopefully coaches that might have sleds will be able to work on this a little bit. So I guess, 2026 velocity decrement, 50%, 25%, slow them down 75%. Like these concepts have been out there. I just kind of want to know from you guys when you're thinking about or programming a VDEC, if you are now, what kind of determines what goes into those decisions? Have you modified things from the classic? Hey, I just got a 1080, have them run at 50% VDEC for power. Just kind of want your summer 2026 updates as far as that goes. Chris, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Cal's still shopping for shoes.
No, I thought I was not first, but
okay.
I'm following you because you and I have had this conversation.
Okay.
Oh,
if I'm looking for force, if I want to build those first couple steps, I'm putting it at 1.5 meters a second to 2.0 meters a second.
Is that gigawatts? Is that gigawatts?
It's gigawatts with the discombobulator attached to it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And the flux capacitor.
The flux capacitor.
That's it, the flux capacitor, not the discombobulator.
That's the secret to the 1080.
Hey, is this time now for me to put this on?
Wait, did you what were you doing last night? That's hostage tape. Calvin.
That's beyond mouth tape. That's too readily available right
that's
there.
That's mummy tape.
Yeah.
Holy God.
So we're only going 2 steps if I'm going that slow. And if I want to go out a little bit further, then I'll take it up to about 4 meters a second, and we'll go steps 3 and 4. But after that, if I want to work on shins down, I'll bring it up to about 4 meters a second. But if I want to work on power, then I'm going to go 50% decrement. I'm basically trying to cut you down to 4 meters a second. And when you can beat 4 meters a second, whatever that weight is, I'm going to add weight. But again, I don't want to change body position too much. And I see that with kids that aren't as strong, that they'll bend or they'll fold over the belt. So then I've got to lighten the weight. But to be honest with you, I do all variable resistance now. I do variable resistance over speed, and I do variable resistance resisted runs.
Can you explain that? Explain that, what the machine's actually
So at the very beginning, I can make it really heavy, and then I set the speed that drops down. So that way I'm working force and power in 1 rep.
Gotcha.
And
So
so
there-
over speed, I do it because I want it heavier at the beginning to literally move your ass to get it going faster. And then I'll cut it down to the speed that I actually want you at. And what I found is overspeed starts has a huge impact on getting people to find where those positions are and what those distances and velocities are. So that's been one of my big things I've been doing. To be honest with you guys, I've done all overspeed the last 3 weeks.
See, that's the brain's ability to feel what it feels like to come out fast.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's awesome.
And I've been using a lot of calf sleeves too, the lilac calf sleeves.
Chris, you said when they beat 4 meters per second. What do you mean by that?
When they can run 4 meters a second at what their 50% decrement is,
Okay.
then I'll add. But I'll be honest with you, the 50% decrement is great for about 2 to 3 weeks. And then after that, it's kind of, there's no, is law of diminishing returns. You don't get any more out of it. You've got to adjust. That's where you have to look to see, where are we falling apart? Are we still not getting out well? What's going on further down the track? So I think 50% is good for 2 to 3 weeks. And
Okay.
after that, I adjust. So no brainer out of the gate, 50% works great for a couple weeks.
Awesome.
Then after that, you're going to make an adjustment based on what the data you're getting is.
Hey, Chris, are you using the calf sleeves on both at the same time, or are you doing one?
We'll do. Want to hear a funny calf sleeve story? So I
I'd
had this
love
kid
to.
here from Massachusetts. He's a state champion 100-meter dash guy. He's never had calf sleeves on before. So we're in the garage. I say, here, put these calf sleeves on. And I'll be honest with you, the shortcoming of the calf sleeves is sometimes they fly off, like the weights fly off the sleeves. The Velcro doesn't work so great, which is interesting. And so he puts them on, and he took the weight and he stuck it inside the sleeve. And I'm like, I've used these things for 10 years and I've bitched about them. Why didn't I never think of that you put the weight inside the sleeves? Because the picture shows the weight's on the outside of the sleeves, and I just went with the picture was. So we put them inside. So we'll do 2 sets with even. We'll do a set with both in one leg, because the law of equilibrium is if we have a system of balance and I slow this one side down, in order to keep going straight, the other side's got to go faster. So that way I can truly work on limb velocity without changing body positions. And then we'll switch both weights to the other side, and then we'll do just some straight up sprints.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. And then Cal, do you agree with everything, or are there things that you're
No.
doing a little bit different?
No, obviously I couldn't disagree with Chris on that. I think it's just more implementation. I fluctuate between 50 and 25% decrement in season, right? Like through a model. And I would agree with Chris. There's eventually at some point a diminished return. But like in season, I drop down a little bit more often than I would off season, just because of the volume of practice, right? Like you got to account for that. And then I got pretty great results with between 25 and 50% in season. But I think even cycling through my different zones of training, like as I get into more after power, then I think you need to drop below like to 35 to 25%.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm out of the power phase. So theoretically I would put power phase between 50 and 35%. And then the speed phase, if I'm doing decrement, I would go about 35 to 20.
Yeah, I agree
20%.
that over time you gradually lighten the load.
Yeah.
Because the idea is you're applying instead of applying the same force and power into the belt, you're applying it into the ground. So you want to kind of watch those numbers and try to keep them the same. And that's a target that you give kids is, okay, great, at X amount of kilos, you're generating this much power. Can you generate with X minus 1 and still generate that kind of power? Because now I know you're pushing into the ground and not shoving the belt.
That makes sense. And so, Cal, you're mentioning in season. What distances would you be running there for those in the hockey world?
Yeah, I'm not anything. I mean, I rarely would go over 20, but it's usually about 15 in season. Guys, shorten the distance just a little bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think 15 is still a good distance.
Yeah.
I think you still get bang for your buck out of 15 yards or 15 meters.
I think I got that from you too, right? Because it just seems like it, especially in season, Chris. As you know, with the hockey guys, like fatigue can set in. But I think after that 15, I saw the quality diminish a little bit,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
especially in my female athletes. You've probably seen the same
Mhm.
thing in the male hockey players too. But I mean, would you agree, Chris? Just in your normal athletes in the off season, even like if they're getting towed heavy, that and I get it. It's more acceleration, so technique isn't as important.
Mhm.
But after that 15 meters, it seems like people do fall apart a little bit, at least in
They do.
season. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that all makes sense. Well, gentlemen, I have potentially 2 more questions that could bring us to another kind of 20 minutes. Do we want to wrap it up here at an hour and a half and we could save those for another time?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it again
Cool.
soon.
Awesome. Yeah, that works for me. I'll read this outro here and we'll rock and roll. Cal, you still have XL Athlete, right?
Yeah.
Okay, XL Athlete and trifacictraining.com. All right, here we go. Well, guys, hey, thank you so much for answering all of our questions here. I know people are going to get a lot out of that. So thank you for listening to this episode of The Fast Lane. Episodes are available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please share this episode and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. You may follow Chris on his school account, SKOOL. He has a link in his social channels.
I put a
You may
lot of new
follow-
stuff on this week, didn't I?
School's awesome. I highly, highly recommend it. Except if you're competing in Division I men and women ACHA hockey. All right, and you can follow Dan and all his training on his Patreon account, Patreon. He also has a link in his social channels. Check out Cal on his YouTube channel. We've talked a little bit about that today. He's always putting up new videos, or on his websites, XL extra large XL Athlete and Triphasic You may ask me questions on X or Instagram at Coach Chris Kerr. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time.